Home to the English, Scots, Welsh, and Irish, the British Isles lie just off the coast of northwestern Europe. This cluster of temperate islands consists of two independent states, the United Kingdom and the Republic of Ireland. The Isles are entirely encircled by the ocean, creating a formidable natural barrier on every front. The treacherous waters of the North Sea, once a highway for Norse raiders, have transformed into Europe's most crucial energy hub. The North Sea oil and gas reserves are substantial. The waters off the coast of the United Kingdom still contain oil and gas reserves equivalent to 15 billion barrels of oil, enough to fuel the UK for 30 years. The Atlantic marks Britain's western frontier, stretching thousands of kilometers to the Americas. In contrast, the English Channel to the south narrowly separates Britain from mainland Europe. But thanks to the marvels of modern engineering, a land bridge of sorts now exists, the Channel Tunnel. This underwater railway tunnel connects the ports of Dover and Calais in France with two train tracks. It is a bustling two-way conveyor belt, constantly shifting goods and people between Britain and the European continent. Britain is distinct in the fact that it is four separate countries united into a singular sovereign state. In England, fertile lowlands, rolling hills, and urban centres make up the lion's share of Britain's territory and 67 million population. To the north, Scotland's landscape is a dramatic contrast of rugged highlands and populated lowlands. Meanwhile, Wales offers its own picturesque mountainous vistas. Across the Irish Sea lies Northern Ireland, a constituent country of the United Kingdom. Unlike the Republic of Ireland, which pursued independence, Northern Ireland remains an integral part of the United Kingdom. In the late 1990s, London granted Edinburgh, Cardiff, and Belfast each distinct degrees of devolved political authority, allowing them to self-govern and address the unique needs of their populations. This formula has shaped the United Kingdom into the power it is today. But it wasn't always so. A fragmented Britain, the rise of England, would struggle to project power beyond its shores. It was only with the rise of the Kingdom of England that Britain could become a key player in Europe. In the medieval period, England's foreign policy was marked by a relentless 500-year quest for the crown of France, a struggle that ultimately ended in defeat with the loss of all its continental possessions. The culturally distinct Welsh, Scots, and Irish proved to be major thorns in the side of England throughout this era, constantly harrying the English borderlands. Slowly, it became clear that if England wanted to compete against its European rivals, it would need to do things differently. It would need to unite with its island neighbours. This unification came neither freely nor easily. It was achieved through a blend of conquest and collaboration. Wales and Ireland were subjugated by force, while Scotland, by contrast, merged with England through a union of crowns. Collectively, these convergences joined Britain's largest kingdoms under a singular sovereign. No longer threatened by land, the united Great Britain began its ascension, utilizing its navy for colonization and trade. It ultimately emerged as the undisputed world power in the 19th century. The British Empire harnessed its geographical strengths with remarkable competence. Instead of trying to gain a foothold in Europe, it focused on building a solid economic foundation and a vast colonial trade empire. The first cornerstone of its strength was the resilient economy that emerged through the Industrial Revolution. Innovative technologies and groundbreaking ideas triggered a drastic shift towards mechanized production fueled by Britain's homegrown iron and coal deposits. In this context, Britain's modest size proved to be an invaluable asset. Its compact, contiguous enclosure greatly facilitated logistics. Furthermore, an extensive network of rivers and canals significantly reduced the cost of transporting raw materials and streamlined the export of manufactured goods. It was almost like geography had designed Britain precisely for the Industrial Revolution. Even so, unlike most other colonial empires, the British Empire was foremost a gargantuan trading bloc. Britain's colonies fed domestic factories with raw materials such as Indian cotton, Malayan rubber, and Caribbean sugar. These were manufactured in Britain and exported across the empire's sprawling markets. The trade with its empire, Europe, and America was so lucrative that Britain surged ahead of its rivals to become the premier industrial and economic superpower. For Britain, the oceans were the canvas on which its empire was painted. Relying on its navy to secure the empire and crucial trade routes, Britain transformed its maritime forces into an unmatched powerhouse during the 18th and 19th centuries. Subsequently, the British Navy evolved into the primary instrument for projecting Britain's power worldwide, underpinning an empire that spanned from North America to Australia. Britain's pursuit of naval and trade supremacy shaped its European foreign policy deeply. So, to prevent any single state from threatening its dominance, Britain meticulously managed the balance of power in Europe using its financial strength, diplomatic influence, and strategic military interventions. London successfully kept emerging powers in check. This ushered in the Pax Britannica, an era where British power ensured relative peace among Europe's great powers. While the balance of power approach maintained Britain's dominance, it inadvertently laid the groundwork for World War I, a conflict that pushed the empire to its very limits. Britain's modern geopolitical identity emerged from the decline of its empire. As Germany rose to power, Berlin challenged Britain's position through two grueling world wars. The German threat was vanquished, but that came at a heavy price. Following World War II, the United States replaced Britain as the global naval power. Slowly but assuredly, Britain decolonized throughout the Cold War. In the twilight years, British policymakers recognized the need for a new pragmatic strategy to secure the nation's future. This strategy involved a flexible approach that would position Britain midway between America and Europe. It hinged on the premise that if the European Union falters, Britain can take advantage and rely on its American ally for support. Conversely, should America weaken and Europe strengthen, Britain can align with the continent. In the instance that both the European Union and the United States decline, Britain would retain the flexibility to pursue an independent path. To strengthen its alliance with America, London utilizes the lieutenant strategy. Essentially, riding on Washington's coattails, this tactic aims to harness American power to advance Britain's strategic interests by actively supporting U.S. initiatives more than its other allies, especially in Iraq and Afghanistan. London aims to secure preferential treatment from Washington. It's an approach that has paid off multiple times. Likewise, Britain's EU membership strengthened its ties with Europe. Through economic power, diplomatic role, and access to the single market, London was a major contributor to the European Union's budget and thus had a significant say in its political objectives. However, in response to Brexit and the changing global geopolitics, Britain needed to revise its strategy. As a middleweight power, the contemporary strategy still emphasizes traditional security measures like nuclear deterrence and naval strength, but it also acknowledges a need to streamline commitments and move away from large unilateral military missions. Another element of the new strategy is Britain's enduring commitment to European security, which seeks to reaffirm its position as NATO's principal European ally. This is particularly notable in the context of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, where British support functions as a coronary artery constantly pumping training and aid to Kyiv. Britain ranks third in total assistance to Ukraine, a firm stance that is widely endorsed across its political spectrum. By taking action on Ukraine, Britain softened Brexit's distancing effect from Europe and positioned itself as a decisive actor in the European security landscape. It also aligns British interests with those of the United States by sharing the burdens of the Ukraine war, which some lawmakers in Washington deem as cumbersome. Simultaneously, contemporary British geopolitics aims to build trade relationships and engage in calculated naval deployments to extend its influence throughout the Asia-Pacific. Regarding China, London walks a tightrope, juggling human rights concerns with the pursuit of beneficial trade relations. Britain still ranks second in soft power globally, and successfully utilizing its soft power is instrumental in fostering new partnerships throughout the Asia-Pacific. This policy seems to be making some progress, but it's still in its infancy, and more time is needed to see if Britain's pivot to the Asia-Pacific will yield any long-term benefits. All the same, Britain has tread carefully since the fall of its empire. But now it faces a real risk of slipping from its golden ledge. The Brexit referendum changed the game when a narrow 52% versus 48% outcome initiated Britain's exit from the European Union. This decision has carried profound economic and geopolitical consequences. Firstly, the post-Brexit economy is faltering. Investment has dropped off, and the 2022 mini-budget triggered a financial crisis. The compounded impacts of COVID-19 and the Ukraine war have whipped up the perfect storm for the country's economy. The IMF now predicts that Britain will be the worst-performing economy in the G7 for 2023. Although Britain is expected to avoid recession this year, avoiding recession is not synonymous with prosperity. This sentiment is likewise felt by the British public as it faces high inflation and seemingly annual budget cuts to public services. By and large, however, the greatest geopolitical consequence of Brexit is the political divisions it has sown within Britain. The unity of the British Isles has long been a cornerstone of the country's geopolitical strength, but separatist forces threaten the bedrock of this accord. The partition of Ireland in 1922 left the predominantly Protestant Northern Ireland as part of Britain. This division has historically been a source of conflict, culminating in the Troubles, a period of violence between Catholic nationalists and Protestant Unionists that lasted for decades. The 1998 Good Friday Agreement brought peace, yet recent demographic shifts with Catholics outnumbering Protestants for the first time in 2021 have reignited strong calls for a unified Ireland. Britain's departure from the EU only adds fuel to the fire in an already tense situation in Northern Ireland. The Democratic Unionist Party is refusing to form an executive with the nationalist parties, bringing the prospect of new legislation to a standstill. Furthermore, the largest party by seats, Sinn Féin, is vigorously campaigning for an independence referendum against Unionist wishes. If London wants to maintain the harmony of Britain, it must play peacemaker and reconcile the two sides. It's a view seemingly reflected in the wider population's consciousness as the psychological scars of the Troubles remain fresh for so many. Still more, to the north, Scottish separatism poses perhaps the greatest threat to breaking up the United Kingdom. Scotland's 2014 independence referendum resulted in a 55% versus 45% vote to remain united with Britain. But Brexit, opposed by 62% of Scots, has transformed the playing field. The Scottish Nationalist Party continues to stir the pot, arguing that electoral successes and favourable polling legitimised their calls for a second independence referendum. This challenges London's reluctance to hold another vote, recognising the threat. London has emphasised the once-in-a-lifetime nature of the 2014 vote. The Supreme Court has sided with London, unanimously ruling that any referendum on Scottish independence requires London's approval, stemming the separatist tide for now. The potential post-separation secession of Scotland threatens to replace Britain's coastal moat with a land border. It carries with it significant security concerns. Primarily, Scotland hosts critical military installations, naval bases, and the Trident nuclear program, which are all critical to Britain's defence capabilities. Scotland would likely remain within NATO, yet secession would necessitate a re-evaluation and possible relocation of at least some of these assets. Then there is the elephant in the room, the North Sea oil and gas reserves. The majority of these would fall within Scottish maritime borders, and whoever controls them will become a focal point of post-independence negotiations. These vital oil wells represent a billion-dollar industry in Britain's already strained economy. While Scotland aims to create a Norway-style sovereign wealth fund with the revenues, London considers them essential for the UK's green transition and energy security. Considering the significance of the North Sea reserves, London would likely endeavour to retain as many installations as possible. However, international maritime border laws could complicate legal claims to these resources. Consequently, in the event of a split, Britain will have to cede a significant share of these essential reserves to Scotland at the expense of British policy objectives. Brexit has opened a can of worms. Should Britain break apart into multiple nations, global perceptions of British influence and power would irrevocably change. Specifically, it could jeopardize Britain's permanent seat on the UN Security Council. Nations like India or Japan, already eyeing up their own permanent seats, might capitalize on Britain's diminished status to bolster their claims, which would greatly undermine London's position on the global stage. All things considered, Britain's geographical position historically provided a Goldilocks zone, fostering the rise of a powerful empire that once dominated the globe. However, the era of European empires has passed, and Britain now finds itself adapting to maintain its prominence and prosperity in a volatile world. Its strategic balance between America and Europe remains delicate, especially as Brexit poses a significant threat to the very unity that has been the bulwark of its success. The head of the government stands at a critical juncture, tasked with steering the nation through intense economic challenges, navigating the lingering cracks of centuries-old divisions, and positioning Britain in a global landscape marked by hostility and anxiety. This rot from within is Britain's foremost objective. An empire toppled from without can mount a comeback, but an empire toppled from within is dead. Thank you for watching and please subscribe to our channel Pouring Knowledge for more videos like these.